This week, the talk title is Let It Flow. And we're going to be looking at those things that can help us experience the flow of abundance through our lives more readily. So let's start off with our basic principle for the month. It comes from our core concepts, which are the fundamental teachings of the science of mind. It reads, "This is a universe of infinite abundance, spiritual, mental, and physical. This bounty of spirit, this allness of good, is limitless and can never be depleted." So as I spoke about last week, our finances can be an area of immense joy or immense struggle in our lives, and it can fall anywhere in between those two extremes. And there are so many reasons for this in our lives. We know that our financial resources, the amount of money in our bank account, our investments, our inheritance, all of that, does not determine whether we are actually living in joy or living in strife. We can have a large bank account with lots of investments, live in a beautiful and opulent home, and still not be enjoying our lives. And we can live on very little with very few possessions and feel a great deal of happiness with our lives. It isn't the amount of money that determines our happiness. It is the amount of good that we are willing to let flow through us that makes all the difference in the world. Let me say that again. It is the amount of good that we are willing to allow to flow through us that makes all the difference in the world. So we live in this infinite universe. Abundance and wealth in every form. Love, health, financial freedom, creativity, and more. We live in a world that is infinitely abundant with all of those things. And the infinite flowing of the reservoir of this supply is always available to us. But all too often, we only let it trickle through. Our consciousness is filled with all kinds of self-imposed rules, with familial and societal beliefs about lack and limitation. It's filled with self-judgment and harsh criticism about our own habits and the experiences that have led to our current state of financial well-being. These rules and beliefs have led to the experiences that we now have. And they form the basis of how we feel about finances in our lives. Now, there's a wonderful analogy that we can apply here to this situation, this idea of flow in our lives. So simply think of a garden hose. One end of the garden hose is connected to a water supply, usually a spigot off the wall of your house. Now, if everything's working the way it should be, there is an infinite supply of water available through that connection to our house. All we have to do is turn on the spigot and the water will flow. And at the other end of the garden hose is an opening through which the water pours out. Now, if everything's working perfectly, the water comes in one end, goes out the other. Continuous flow. Now, it takes our consciousness, our belief system, to actually open the flow. We have to believe it's possible. We have to believe that we can allow that to come through. So for our water hose, we just simply go to the spigot and we turn it on. And in all faith and trust and belief, we know that water is going to flow out of it. So that's our first step. Knowing and trusting that an infinite supply of water is available to us all the time. Knowing and trusting that an infinite supply of everything is available to us all the time. Now, sometimes we can turn on the water and still not have water come out the other end. Sometimes there's something that has clogged up the hose. Perhaps it's gotten mud in it. Perhaps it's, been left to get old and has corroded inside. Sometimes it gets a kink in it. It's bent in two. Sometimes that can pinch off the water supply, and so there's no flow. I remember as a child playing in the yard, and we drank from the water hose, and we also squirted each other with it. But I remember turning on the water hose and then picking it up and folding it in half right away so that the water didn't come out where I didn't want it to and I didn't make a mess everywhere. And I could move it to a place where I wanted to have the water where without getting everything around me wet. And I was able to take a drink out of it without soaking myself in the process because I was controlling the flow of it. And so I had control over the flow of this water moving through this hose. And I knew that I could open it just a little bit more. If I opened it up a little bit more, I could get more water coming out of there. And if I opened it up fully, it was going to flow continuously. You see, the water was always available, but I controlled how much I let out. So the same thing can be said for spirit and the amount of good that is flowing into our lives. It is constantly available. Good in the form of finances, in the form of health, in love, in creativity, all of those things. There is a continuous flow of abundance always available to us. We turn it on and off by our belief system. It's not about how much good is available. It's about how much am I allowing to flow through me. It's about how much I believe is possible and how much I allow fear and doubt and those ideas of lack and limitation or the idea that this is just the way it is. It's about how I let those things choke off the flow of the infinite good till it's just a mere trickle. Our work is to take the kink out of the hose, to allow it to flow through and let that natural abundance of the universe flow into our lives. In the Science of Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes says this: "Here and now, we are surrounded by and immersed in an infinite good. How much of this good is already ours? All of it. And how much of it may we use? As much as we can embody. We live in a universe built on a creative flow, an extravagant expression of life energy. And yet so many times, we only allow a small trickle of good into our lives. Our consciousness is the ruling law of our life. And what fills our consciousness? What beliefs and rules do we have about God? About what God wants? About what God doesn't want? About what God is willing to give us? Or about the judgment that God might be holding on about us? These beliefs, these limiting thoughts and beliefs, are what control the flow in our lives. Do we actually believe money is sacred and spiritual? It's as sacred and spiritual as anything else. Or do we believe that it's something separate and apart, never ever to be considered spiritual? Do we have value and worth? And are we entitled to live well, or do we feel that we are undeserving? Do we think we shouldn't live well because there are others around us who aren't? Do we believe there's an ebb and flow to this infinite, ever-present supply? Or are we subject to the ups and downs of the market and the financial reviews of the day and don't believe that we were able to prosper in these bad times? What are we telling the universe about how to show up for us? The universe is always saying yes. There is never a restriction in the universal flow. It's always within us, and it's always looking for an outlet. We are the ones blocking the flow. We are the ones with our hands on the hose, crimping it tight. As we recognize that our consciousness is the creative element in our lives, we totally connect with an infinite source of good. And we realize our experience of prosperity comes from within us. You have probably heard many people use the phrase, the law of attraction. I think they're a little off base with that. Because the law of attraction Just the word itself, attraction, means that there's something out there and we need to attract it in here. We believe that our good is outside of us and that we need to do something to bring it into our lives. And I believe that this is the root of many of our problems. We believe we have to do something right to deserve this infinite flow of good into our lives. We believe we have to be smart enough or good enough. We believe that we somehow have to manipulate external conditions in some manner or form in order to deserve this good or to receive this good. But in all actuality, this good is already within us, looking for a way to express itself. So instead of the law of attraction, we might want to call it the law of radiation, where we radiate or express out, and then that becomes our experience of life. If I hold dysfunctional beliefs about wealth, about prosperity, about whether or not I deserve something, that's what's radiating out from me. And that is what is reflected back to me. And that's what becomes my experience. In his book, Spiritual Economics, Eric Butterworth coins a new word. He says that when we're thinking about improving our health, we cultivate a healthful attitude. And he believes that it is just as important, if not more so, that we adopt a wealthful attitude about our financial life. A wealthful attitude, just like health, but wealth instead. A wealthful attitude about our financial life. In his book, The Power of Decision, Raymond Charles Barker puts it this way: the grandeur of life is known by the few when it should be known by the many. The majority of people are half healthy, half wealthy, half happy, and half creative. The majority of the people haven't fully expressed this full-out wealthful attitude. What would it look like if we did? Cultivating a wealthful attitude is more about aligning ourselves with our true nature than it is about manipulating, in some kind of mental manipulation, our thoughts to create a new reality. In this mental manipulation, we are trying to bring something into our experience that we believe is outside of ourselves. And oftentimes there's a feeling of desperation or hopelessness with this. We are trying to find the right way to say things, the right way to do things, to actually bring about the conditions that we want to have, that we want to experience, instead of aligning ourselves with it and recognizing that truth within ourselves. We're desperately seeking to bring it into ourselves. I can say that I want financial prosperity, and I can come up with a number that I think mentally will make me feel like I'm a more prosperous person. And I can spend many years mentally repeating affirmations about the number of zeros I have in my bank account and never have a shift in consciousness or a corresponding shift in my bank account. Because I am still believing I'm trying to attract something to me that I feel is not currently within me. One of the ways that we can really begin to shift our consciousness around finance, abundance, prosperity, and all those ideas associated with it is to really get clear on what it is we are truly seeking. And we can do this by focusing on the why. And the why I'm talking about here is what I want to feel and experience, not what do I want to get. Why am I seeking more financial prosperity in my life? Why am I seeking an easier flow of riches into my life in all different forms? Why? It's not about the things. It's about the feelings that we want to experience. Our heart's desires are our greatest assets. Our true heart's desires guide us to what wants to be expressed through us. Too often, however, we shut them off and stop listening. And usually we do this for two reasons. One is we have no idea how to bring them about. And the second is we believe the desire itself is either wrong or bad, or we don't deserve it. The universe doesn't create desires through us without providing the means to accomplish these desires. We may not always see the how. That's not our business. Our business is to be clear on the what and the why of the desires, and to stand in that vision in faith as the universe provides the means. Sometimes this is referred to as energizing the polarity of wisdom and love. We have the wisdom of the vision, the wisdom of clear thinking, the wisdom of knowing these spiritual principles. These are unfettered by old dysfunctional beliefs. And we have the power of love, the power of desire, the power of vision for the idea that wants to express through us. And as we let both expand, the wisdom and the love, our experience of life becomes a joyful creation of expansion. As we really begin to understand that our consciousness is the cause of our life, our belief system is the cause of our life, we recognize that the only work we need to do is to clear our consciousness of the congestion and the restriction in the flow of the divine through us. The abundant brilliance of the Infinite One is always shining. It's always expressing. It's always on. And it's always looking for an outlet. We just need to get out of its way and into our own way, into that flow of the divine through us. We need to choose that right path that aligns ourselves with the true nature of this infinitely abundant universe. And it will show up in our lives in ways that delight and surprise us. Abundance is natural to God, and therefore it is natural to us. Let's open out a way from which the imprisoned splendor may emerge, and watch the magnificence that happens in our lives. All right, let's take this into prayer, into our spiritual mind treatment, knowing the perfection and the wholeness that is here right now is the natural state of who we are. And so we do this by first recognizing that presence, aligning ourselves with it, and then speaking up from a place of true knowing. We give thanks and we let it go. And so if you would with me, just simply take in a nice deep conscious breath and allow yourself to center and to become still. And in the stillness, I know that there is only one. One power, one presence, one infinite source of all. I know that one is that creative love intelligence that has brought forth everything into existence. I know it is that power of peace and perfection, the unconditional love and harmony of this universe. I know that our entire universe exists in a state of balance, and a harmonious unfolding is continuously happening in this world, right here and right now. And because I know there's only one, I know that I am one with it. I know that that infinite abundance of the universe is the truth of who I am. And as I know this is true for me, I know this is true for each person here, that we are all in perfect alignment with this divine flow of prosperity and abundance that is continuously moving through our lives. I know that each one of us is on a course of greater and greater unfoldment, that the movement of spirit is happening through us right here and right now, that it is looking for a way through which it can be expressed in such rich and opulent ways. Spirit delights in the diversity of its creation, and it allows its creation to manifest itself in the most splendid and profound ways, moving through each and every one of us into manifestation as our lives, as the lives that are unfolding before us. And this infinite flow of divine energy is moving through, in and as every one of us. How good it is to feel this, how good it is to see it operating, how good it is to experience it in our daily lives, in the lives of our community, in the lives of our world. What a joy it is to simply know that this is the truth. And so in humble thanksgiving, I just simply release this word into that law, into that creative mind that knows no limits, that has no boundaries. I let it go and I let it be. And so it is. Amen.